The Force Awakens.
Yeah, you caught on real quick that I started. I was like, oh, let me see if she's gonna say something. Oh, let me eat chocolate. It's good for the microphone.
Yeah, that's a good chocolate though.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that Preston chocolate, rich in milk.
Oh yeah,
That
it's
milky
Sutu
chocolate.
Cocolin.
Rococo.
Oh.
Rococo bean.
Mm.
So
That's our first advertiser.
we should reach out to them and see if they'll sponsor us.
Get an American fan base right there.
So The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
Quick impressions. What do you think? Well, I'll go first.
Yeah, let me know what you think.
Pretty much, I thought it was a good Star Wars flick to bring back. You know, it felt very safe. You know, but it was, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, it was a very fun flick to watch.
True.
I feel like it had its problems, but overall, I feel like this is what they needed to do as a big return. Mm-hmm. And overall, I think they succeeded on that front.
I think I agree with that a lot, especially with the whole very safe.
Yeah.
The movie was definitely it was good overall, and it definitely treaded very close to a lot of familiar territory in a lot of ways. But like you said, I think it's kind of something that it needed to do, especially because you have the extended universe. They've done a couple things here and there, but like mainstream and movie-wise, the last movies they had were the prequels, which left a really bad taste in everyone's mouth. So they kind of needed to do a return to form in a way.
Right.
My issue, I think, kind of comes once you start thinking about it, and especially now after the fact, which I guess is something we can get into a little later, like after we kind of give some impressions on the movie, where I think last time I saw a movie made over at least 540 million. Something along those lines. Like it's up there. It's gonna make bank. It's gonna make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And I guess also we'll kind of preface this by saying that obviously we're talking about the movie. There'll probably be spoilers. You know, we'll probably have some spoilers. So if you're
listening
someone
to this, back out already.
Yeah, maybe we'll put something up wherever we post it on that we have a timestamp of when we stop talking about spoilers and start talking about something else. But at this point,
unlikely, though,
I think if you cared enough, you probably would have seen the movie already,
Right.
All things considered. And hey, no guarantee. We might not actually do that. That takes work, and we have to find it, and then who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see. No guarantees. You'll know, because you'll look, and you'll see if it says it. But I think for something that made so much money, if at the end of the day, if the best thing I can say for it is, yeah, it was just like Star Wars, that's kind of like damning with faint praise in a way, you know what I mean? It's not really saying, did it really add anything to the Star Wars universe? Did it add anything? Was it a necessary film then? It's necessary in regards to, hopefully 8 and 9 will be different.
I think an interesting way to go about it is, what would you have done if you were in George Lucas's shoes, Me personally... you guys, this is a business after all, and as you said, the last movies that were made in Star Wars were the prequels, obviously.
Yeah.
And it left a lot of people sour on the franchise, and you can see in those movies they tried to dive more into the fiction of Star Wars,
a lot of the politics
and the politics, and he wanted to try to build a history behind the Jedi and show some of that past, But then, it's obviously, it can be argued that his execution of that, was a lot left to be desired, or a lot of mistakes he made in delivering it. Mm-hmm. But you can tell going into this movie, his main focus was to bring Star Wars back to something that longtime fans are familiar with, and that they would leave with an overall positive impression of.
True.
Because now, really, if now that overall the reception seems to be pretty well, it's getting pretty well received, and from there, now there's a couple storylines I think he can build from this movie,
definitely,
where now that he played it safe, that allows him room for the next movie to be more creative and maybe stepping although bringing something, because in the next movie he's gonna bring something similar to what it was in probably in all the movies, like something, because you have to. That's just how it is.
I guess the question is, even before it gets like a little bit into that, is how much involvement did Lucas actually have in this movie in comparison to Abrams? Because I could be off on it. I'm not too sure. Like I just don't really know offhand how much he was actually involved with anything involving it. Because I think he was a little bit more hands off with a lot of this stuff. And
Abrams directed it, right?
Yeah, and I think he might have had a little bit more.
You can feel Abrams' direction in this movie. You can feel at points it kind of feels very fast, fast moving.
Even the dialogue was very much in a lot of ways, where there's certain scenes with like Poe when he first meets Kylo, and even like even some of the interactions where it's like, should I talk? Would you talk first? Like it was kind of like this felt very like Abrams-esque in terms of like the way that things were kind of going in terms of what's happening. But it's just that like one of the things I'll say at least about the other movies, is I know also very like a lot of people, the movies, they weren't that great, the original trilogy, or rather the prequel trilogy. But it's something I've heard other people bring up too, where it's kind of like, I think also why it's like George was a little bit maybe hands off with this stuff, is you can see that like the other movies, like they had like, and again, they were prequels, so maybe it didn't necessarily fit very well, but like they had like the attempt to try something new. Even like the technology looked new. But in this one, it's like, here's, TIE fighters and X-Wings again, and it really wasn't like, there was nothing particularly like, it was all very hearkening and reminiscent of, like, it was very much like, hey, forget those old movies, forget the original, like the prequels, think only about the original trilogy,
A lot of the direction felt like some of the characters were just split or just direct rips of the classic characters,
Yeah.
Like they're clearly positioning Finn to be Han Solo's replacement.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I was going to go ahead.
Well, I mean, the Finn and Poe relationship actually is very much kind of like.
I thought Poe was part of Luke.
Yeah.
Because the rebel fighter, and now that they have Rey, is just the Jedi side of Luke. Now that's not just one character. They can have something they can expand into. But probably one of my favorite characters in the movie was I would say Rey.
Yep.
A female lead that's very strong, and I like how they depicted her. It was very funny. Finn felt natural in his comedic. He felt very, like he had that comedic punch to him, but he felt natural doing it, and like the way he felt, the way he moved with Rey, like it was clear he had a connection to her, and he was very protective of her. Yeah. But it was good that they showed her as not needing that, because she's been living on her own in Jakku. Yeah. And that her whole storyline, I'm interested. So what he succeeded on in this movie is creating an interesting character enough for Poe that I'm curious to see how it's all connected for the future. So on that front, he succeeded. Now I'm looking forward to. Yeah, definitely. Now you have to go into who this character is. Yeah.
I mean, I thought that all the new characters were all like really well done and super interesting, and like even at kind of like something we'll probably get into is like at the behest really of like some of the older characters. Like some of the older characters I think kind of didn't have as strong a showing as some of these newer characters. Yeah. And I feel like definitely Finn and even Poe and Rey, they all had very good like chemistry between each other, and it was very interesting and fun to watch them kind of interact and get involved with everyone.
How'd you feel about Poe and Finn already, like off the bat, being best friends?
I liked it, and I think it fit too.
It fit, because Finn, he's a stormtrooper, and before that moment when he was realizing what situation he was in, that's when like it's a baby seeing their emotions for the first time, and like you saw this influx of emotions coming through Flynn as he was trying to escape, and then he saw the only person he can relate to and who can help him get out of this situation. Yeah. And it was just a moment where they both needed each other so much, and they can feel how, that they were
very good
people.
Bonding moment,
Right,
where it's like,
and it was,
you saved my life. Like, I mean, it definitely, I think like I think there's an argument to me where it fits a lot more for Finn to feel that way than it does Poe, but then you have to remember that Poe just was basically, he was going to die. If it was not for Finn to come in there to save him, he would have been a dead man.
He needed him, right.
So, it fits well for him to be, like, as friendly with him and be like, yo, like, you definitely saved my life. And that's even like when he comes in and he comes back and he returns. It's like, I heard that you saved one of my ace pilots. Like, you know, like, thank you. Like, you know, like, I appreciate that you're doing that. Like, you know, it's something that's very important for him. And I can see how Poe would kind of be like, yeah, definitely, I would have been not alive. Yeah. You know, and he has that relationship too in a way where it's like, I gave you a name. You know, like, it's kind of very paternal almost with him, even though
they do a decent job of building some of the relationships, you know.
Yeah, really well done. Even like, again, Finn and Rey, like you said before, like, I think that they build that relationship extremely well. Even Rey and Han, I think, is kind of like, right off the bat, they do a pretty decent job with it. You know,
and going back to now that you bring up Rey again, with the we're going to be doing a lot of jumping around because it's an exciting time for Star Wars fans. Yeah. So going to Rey, you could just feel immediately that, okay, there's something. And mind you, let me tell you, let me preface this by saying that I didn't watch any trailers. Yeah, me either. I was dark going into this movie, so I had no idea Rey would even have any sign of being a Jedi. Or having the ability to use the Force. I saw like that first trailer they had shown, like, you know, like that first one. I did see that. I saw it only once though. Yeah. Right. But I didn't. I remember seeing. I knew Finn. The only thing I still remembered from that trailer was that Finn was going to be a stormtrooper. Yeah. And then at the end, like, Han and Chewie are in there, and I was like, oh, obviously they come back. And that's also why, like, when they showed up, I'm like, oh, so one of them is going to die, probably Han, because Chewie is CG. Like, they can easily like. Just to take it out of it, like, you know, then wow. I wasn't even thinking that. Drop that off really quick. Moment. When I saw it, drop that bomb. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, Han dies, by the way. Taking it back a bit. Went over and just dropped it. I mean, spoiler is just, you know, weapons free. Let's go. Handed him out. You know, let him fly, man. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, you know, like it's just, I guess, the meta, like, cinematic point of view, or whatever. Just from looking at it, was as soon as it happened, I'm like, Harrison Ford's old. Like, you know, like, he can only be, at the very least, this movie is going to be the passing of a baton. Someone has to die. And apparently he wanted to die in Star Wars for a while now already. Yeah, I don't think he's really liked being in the movies for a very long time. He's been wanting to kill off Han for a while. Yeah. Yeah. What do you say, Han or Han? I say Han. It's supposed to be Han Solo, It is supposed to be Han, but so many people say Han. Yeah. You know? I don't know, I guess it's like Amiibo and Amiibos. Or Jedi and Jedis. People who say Jedis, you're wrong. It's Jedi. It's Return of the Jedi. Thank you. Sure. What did you think about, like, the whole, like, the beginning scroll when it's like, just, again, we're doing a lot of jumping. Yeah. But it's like Luke is the last Jedi. Oh, how it's just a time jump like that? Yeah. Oh, what? So one of the problems I have actually with it, I guess, is, like, you know, I haven't been following any of the extra stuff. Like, I know, like, they've rebooted a whole bunch of the extended universe stuff, and, like, most of it's been excised. But I think, like, there's that cartoon or whatever, the Clone Wars or Rebel Wars, and that's supposed to be, like, still involved with it or something. I don't know. No, I think it is. Yeah, it's something I haven't really been keeping up with too much. But because I haven't been following any of the extended stuff, when this movie started, like, you know, I know they've done time jumps before, clearly, in some of the other movies, and I know that some time period obviously happens in this one. Right. And when you jump between, like, even the prequels to the originals, like, there's obviously some time that passes. But it left me, for a lot of the movie, very confused about, like, a lot of stuff that was going on. And this kind of refers back to a little bit when we were talking about how the prequels had a lot of, like, reliance on politics. So, in this movie, I had no idea what was going on with, like, the rebels, the resistance, why they existed. And I had to actually look all that stuff. That was one of my biggest issues with it. Yeah, because like it was very much like, obviously, to recreate the way in which that the original trilogy happened, where you had, like, the rebels, and they were like the underdogs, and you had the big empire. But at the end of Return of the Jedi, the empire was pretty much done with. Like, you had the emperor killed. Right. You had, like, a major blow was dealt to it with, like, the destruction of the second Death Star and all this other stuff that happened. Like, I mean, like, it was very much like it ended with the celebration of, like, the empire is gone, you know? And then in this one, it's kind of like, well, not really. And it was very strange. And then, like, I had to, like, throughout the whole movie, I was kind of trying to figure out what's happening. And the fact, like, I had to go and actually look up some of that stuff was some of the stuff that, like, kind of irked me. Yeah. So what it turns out is that it's supposed to be that after it happened, even though they're celebrating on the planet, was it Coruscant or whatever, like, after at the end of the movie? Yeah. Yeah. They only have, like, a little short, like, celebration before, like, things start up again. And then they ended up actually, like, the rebels ended up, like, kind of crumbling the empire a little bit.
after the Battle of Jakku, which is supposed to be a very big thing, which is also why, like, when they're showing you all of the, like, AT-ATs and all of, like, the destroyed...
The Star Destroyer.
Yeah, they're showing, because that's, like, a very key Rebel victory.
Which you think they would go into it?
Never go into it at all. It's something that you were supposed to have known about, because I guess they figure is, like... And it's one of the things that bothers me.
So wait, in the fiction that we already know what happens...
Yeah, like it's not supposed to be something like that is not unknown. Like I don't know if it's in like the books or if it's in that cartoon or whatever it is, but I had to look up online where it's like, yeah, like the Battle of Jakku was like a key victory for the rebels, and it's one of the things that allowed them to basically sign like a treaty with the Empire and kind of like begin to like demilitarize a little bit. But I had to look that up. There was no mention of it.
It was a situation of extended fiction not being included into the...
which is something that bothers me in a lot of other video games, such as Halo, where it's kind of like you have to bring in some of the outside knowledge. And it's like, I don't know where, if I want to just go into a movie and just want to watch it, but like this is such like a major point, and to not bring it up at all is like mind-boggling to me because it's so integral to what's going on. So afterwards, like they had this treaty and they started demilitarizing, and then the Empire basically started rebuilding under the New Order, and that's what they were doing to kind of rise up again. And because the New Republic was demilitarizing, the rebellion, quote unquote, is basically like their clandestine, almost like Black Ops wing, which is why they're like, we can't go and we can't request help from the New Republic because like they're supposed to be demilitarized, and that's like why it's like, because you sit there the whole time, it's like, well, why aren't they just going and just crushing the New Order? It's like they have all of the military might of the giant New Republic and everything. It's like, well, no, not really. They're demilitarizing. All they have is basically just one arm, and that's supposed to be like their Black Ops. Like we don't talk about that thing, you know, and that's very important. Like it's just the fact that they gloss over that entirely is just crazy to me. Because the entire time I watch this movie, and I'm just like, I don't know why. Like they're not fighting back, and especially when they have that giant, when they have the Star Killer or that was the name of the new Death Star, right?
Killer, yeah.
And it goes and it blows up those 5 planets, like basically a whole solar system.
How did you feel about that?
You know,
I wish you can just like you can tell the impact it could have, you know. But I wish we would have felt it more, you know. I wish they would have portrayed it better. That we would have felt that, all right, these populated planets were just blown up, and I should care about it.
Well, that's one of the parts too, where it's like if we had any sort of knowledge of the politics going on, I think we would have felt that, because one of the planets that got blown up was basically the new capital planet. It wasn't Coruscant, but it was effectively the new, like after they moved from Coruscant, it's not like the main capital planet anymore. But I had no idea about that. So it's like you see that and you see like, you kind of like, you get the feeling that you're seeing like important people die, where you have like that woman that they show you a close up of, and she like looks up and like she looks like she's dressed up in military gear. But like they don't really indicate that at all in the movie. And I feel like it's very much like a severe overcorrection from the prequels that relied way too much on politics. In this one, they do too little.
Complete opposite.
Yeah,
right.
Where it's kind of like, and that's I think
they could have found that middle ground.
Yeah,
you know?
And I think there's a lot of parts in the movie where I can say like the same thing, because it's also like, you know.
And I think, well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, like Kylo is basically like, all right, so we didn't do Anakin right. Let's do Anakin right now. And like it's very much like, I get what you're getting at, but then like, is he really like, are you doing enough to differentiate him between like what you were trying to say with Anakin and what you're getting at with him? I feel like Kylo, I think there's a little bit more leeway on, and I think that overall I can say they kind of did him right. But at the end of the day, like there's a lot of like little things where I can look at and say like, all right, so like I know that the prequels didn't do this, but like maybe you're relying a little bit too much and going the other way. Even the aliens, a lot of the aliens are like bipedal, human-esque. Yeah. Like some of them had like, you know, like there's obviously
that was another one of my complaints, was we didn't see too much diversity from the aliens.
Yeah, and like you look at some of like, I mean, you know, or everybody hates the Gungans, whatever, but just have one in the fucking background or something.
Yeah,
you know, it wouldn't have been like you need to create something. It seems like they in a lot of ways want to like totally like just sever any connection between the prequels. Like just whatever, like totally just.
And I think they could have used more from the prequels, and I think people would have been fine with it.
Yeah,
because all they needed to do now, because the prequels was too much, now they just had to do less. You know, and then they just, instead of playing it too safe, too similar to the 4, 5, and 6, they should have included more politics and some more of that backstory.
Yeah.
because I think people would be more receptive to it these days.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
what I think it is too is because they wanted to like make people feel very nostalgic for 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
They didn't want people to think about 1, 2, and 3 at all to any capacity. That's why it's like, why couldn't it be Coruscant? It's like, well, no, it's on a totally new planet now because Coruscant was in those original like the prequels. So it's like we don't want to mention Coruscant really. Like we don't want to like show you Coruscant, like none of that. So let's bring it to a new planet because effectively, like it does the same thing effectively, but we don't want you to actively think about Coruscant. Like it's not what we want to make you think about at all. And it's a weird thing to say where it's like like the main problem of those ones is like the politics was so much and like intergalactic trade federations and all this stuff in those prequels. But like in this one, like I think it's a really legitimate complaint to have where it's like they don't explain any of that stuff, and there's a difference between too much and not enough, and like it's definitely a very easy middle
even in
ground
4,
to
5, and
find.
6, I felt that that they didn't do enough explaining. Mm-hmm. And
well, in 4, 5, and 6, it was easy because it was all blank slate, so it was very much like you had underdog rebels and an evil empire, and like you really didn't need to necessarily say more than that.
Well, I can understand that for 4.
Yeah.
But there were certain things in 5 and 6 that I just wish they would have went into more.
Oh, definitely.
But
I mean, like,
that's just the nature. That's just not how the movies are, and you can understand that because that's how they're designed.
Exactly.
So.
But that's why like this one was trying so hard to recreate 4, 5, and 6, where it's like, but you have to respect the fact that 6 other movies happened previously,
and this is
so you can't like I know you're trying to do a soft reboot, but you can't just go and just do it. Like if you're going to do a soft reboot, then it straight up needs to be like new characters, no relation to the old ones, boom. Like that would be the way to do that. And like do a reboot that way. But like if you're going to like be like, no, these are characters that are related to other characters, you're going to interact with our characters, then you can't just like totally sever that connection between it. You have to like respect what happened to it and catch people up. Don't expect them to catch up just on outside things,
Yeah. So going back to the Rebels, though, how do you feel that we didn't get no coverage of them, really?
Well, because
we only saw, the X-Wings. That's the only piece of Rebel technology we saw, right?
Yeah, and they had that meeting with Leia, and they were talking over things, and, like, they had that room with basically it's like, oh, here's Admiral Akbar again, and here's a bit of bit players and stuff. Recognizable characters that you really couldn't mention, like, think of the names of offhand, but it's like, oh, that's Parkman from Heroes, and that's Ken Long, I know him.
Parkman.
Yeah, I can't think of that actor's name at all. I don't know. Matt something? I don't know. Sorry, Parkman. He's Parkman to me. It's where I knew him from. But, they definitely didn't show enough. But that was why, in the back of my head, it's like, I know that they're making a Rebel movie, aren't they?
Is that what Rogue One is?
Isn't it?
I dark on it.
I don't know, because I haven't really been keeping up on it too much either. The only thing I know is that I think it was being written by Gary Whitta. And then I think it got rewritten. So it's not even like the original plan for what that movie is. Mm-hmm. They're doing something different now. So I don't quite know exactly what that is.
So for Rogue One, it's new, right? With the Star Wars universe, everything's going to be connected now?
Yeah, it's all supposed to be like extended Marvel type stuff, basically.
So you figure probably for like Marvel, they're going to do something set up for episode 8, right? You would expect?
Pretty much, because that's what we're getting next, is basically going to be Rogue One, which might be why they rewrote it primarily, is maybe to fit in more with like what's going on with 7 and 8 or something to make it fit.
Yeah. I don't plan to see on any of those trailers, so it'll be interesting to talk about it from an angle of not knowing what's totally going on. Yeah, exactly.
Like I think the only thing I know about
I'm sure we're gonna talk about when the buzz starts getting larger.
Yeah, I don't even know if it has like a release year. Like, is it? Is there a Star Wars coming out?
No, it's next year. It's next year. It's every year. There's gonna be a Star Wars movie, and then episode 8 is gonna be 2017.
Yeah, probably. So it's probably like it's again like Marvel and Avengers, where it's like you kind of get every 2 years is like the real one, and then you get the tertiary ones.
Damn, the real one.
I mean that to take like a slight tangent, like that's basically how it is with Marvel, and that's kind of like the thing that I think kind of sucks and bothers me, especially about the way they'll do Star Wars, is maybe they'll do it differently for Star Wars, though at this point it's Disney owns Marvel as well, and like they're all interconnected. They'll probably, same machine, they're gonna do the same thing, where Rogue One won't matter. So I'm gonna come at you right now and say that like at the end of the day, like because the ones that matter are 7, 8, and 9. and they'll have 3 movies or whatever between them, but they're going to take into account. It's like, think about Captain America, right?
Right.
So between
But you needed Captain America.
But did you? Because at the end of the day,
that one, the movie was good, and 2, it did a good job of building up Captain America because he wasn't really a huge a character well known within the mainstream at that time. You know?
But
so, you know,
but
let me hear the but.
Right, you need Captain America's. I'll agree. Captain America's a pretty good movie. But let's be specific, like, instead of just referring to Captain America, because those are a lot origin stuff, too. So, like, obviously, when you had Avengers, you didn't really talk about that. Let's be more specific when we're talking about Avengers and Age of Ultron and the other ones. So, Captain America, Winter Soldier. We'll have spoilers for that now, guys. So, and I guess Age of Ultron. Yeah. So, that movie ends, and it's like a big game changer. S.H.I.E.L.D. is done. Like, you know, I'm talking about Captain America. S.H.I.E.L.D. is basically done because it was all like it was essentially Hydra all along. You had Nick Fury was pretty much done with, like, you know, like what does he reveal about himself? You know, like is it that he didn't need the eye patch? Is that what it was? Or am I thinking?
That he wasn't dead.
Yeah.
Wasn't that
in
Age of Ultron, wasn't it?
In Age of Ultron, but I didn't get to that one yet. Like what in
Winter Soldier?
Winter Soldier, he dies, right?
Right.
Something happens with Nick Fury that I can't remember. But
he didn't die. Okay, so he died.
I can't remember if it was that or he revealed, like, something happens with the eye patch. But basically, it ends right with it being a game changer. And at the end, when you get into Age of Ultron, none of that matters because at the end, it's like effectively, did it matter at all? He comes back basically with S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, like, he comes back, he steals a flying thing. Nick Fury is there, and he's basically reinstated a new S.H.I.E.L.D. They're designed to be modular movies where the main ones that matter are Avengers. You can go into Avengers not having seen Thor 2 or Captain America 2. What they really care about is you seeing the Avengers. Like, all that other stuff is basically something that gives you, like, a background knowledge and you have, like, a clearer understanding of it, but it's designed to be something where you can see the mainline movies. They don't want to exclude you. They don't want it to make it so that you won't see Avengers 2 or Avengers 3. So all the stuff that happens in these other movies really doesn't matter. It's again where it's like, you know, when they bring up in Avengers where it's like, you know, with Captain America, to use him again as an example, he goes and he says he's like, you know, they talk about Germany or whatever, and they talk about, and Captain America's like, oh, I remember the bad guys I fought. And effectively, if you've seen Captain America, you know he's talking about Red Skull. But if you haven't, he could be talking about Hitler. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who he's talking about. It, like, the people that have seen Captain America know Red Skull.
On your point, people then, the fans could have discussed who he was talking about at that point, and it would have been an interesting discussion, you know?
In a way, yeah, definitely. Like, it definitely would have, but, like, in regards to what actually happens in the movie, though, it's irrelevant. It's totally an irrelevant thing. And that makes, again,
I'm just saying it could have been fine either way is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree.
But as to go against what you're saying, though, it sounds like you just have a problem with the sequels in these movies. So, like, Rogue One wouldn't be the Captain America one. You know what I'm saying? And then say if the movie that comes out after episode 8, if that's Rogue 1 Part 2 or something, then we could start talking about, okay, maybe then it could be, okay, they're doing too much, they're doing the Winter Soldier, they're doing Iron Man 2, unnecessary.
Well, yeah, it could be Rogue 2, like, it could really be whatever comes out.
Because maybe Rogue 1 is the thing that we need after episode 7.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is like, I can tell you right before it comes out, is I know it's not going to be, because they're not going to come at you and say, oh, here's this big blockbuster 8. But if you didn't see that movie that came out before, well, fuck you then. You're going to be missing out on a whole bunch of stuff.
You don't think they're going to do that?
They're not going to do it. They don't do it now with Marvel. They're not going to do it with this. It's they make too much money to do that. And, like, they make that money by being inclusive. You know, what matters only is, like, what begins in the movies.
They make that money by being inclusive. So
inclusive to you seeing those movies. Like, they don't want to exclude you from seeing the main sequel because you didn't see those tertiary, like, outside sequels.
But they want you to see those other movies, though. Which is
ideally, they want you to see everything. So that's why they put the
stuff in the Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
you know
which is why, like, when you see Ultron, it's like, oh man, you got to know what's happening in Ant-Man, and you got to see Captain.
That's what I mean. That's why they want you to see Rogue One.
But you don't. that's what I'm saying.
No,
it's
but-
like I can tell you right now, when I saw Age of Ultron, I hadn't seen Thor 2. It didn't matter because what only mattered in Age of Ultron was Thor's story.
Ant-Man mattered because if Ant-Man's gonna be in the next movie.
But does he? Because at everything that happens with Ant-Man, they're gonna re-explain in the next Avengers.
But it makes me appreciate his character more.
In a way, but that's what I'm saying is like you're getting the full story
because that's his first movie.
Right, you're getting the.
I think that might be a part of it though. Like their first movies.
Kind of.
Because once they start adding on to the sequels after then that's where they start diluting things, and then they think like, all right, so then they really not even adding anything at all. That's going to the. But I don't know. They added like little things, like.
But it's always little things. It's never anything major.
But arguably the little things are like maybe like the references, but like the major things are the characters themselves. Like that's a big deal. Like the Winter Soldier, he's gonna be a big deal in Civil War. So I guess that's a mini franchise. Yeah. So I guess it's a matter of like how you look at it.
Exactly, because he's gonna matter in the next Captain America movie,
which is its own little franchise,
which is its own thing. But is that gonna actually be anything that matters in Avengers, which is their main thing? It's all supposed to tie into
smart,
Avengers
though, for a business,
Oh, definitely, because they make you feel like you need to see everything, but effectively you can only watch the Avengers.
So going back to
good.
Star Wars, they probably won't. You saying, like judging off of what they're doing with Marvel, you don't think,
Nah, because I feel like it's overall the same company. It's still
Makes
Disney
sense.
Marvel. They're gonna do the same exact thing.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
Which I don't know. Just again to kind of piggyback off of like we were already talking about. What do you think about the Civil War? Did you read Civil War at all?
I know just a little bit of it. I think it has to do with what the IDing.
Yeah, basically.
But I don't know if is that what the movie has to do with.
The movie's weird,
because it seems like this is the first time I saw the trailer. I was avoiding it, but then,
actually, I only saw a little bit of the trailer. I still didn't see the whole thing.
I won't say too much of it, but I'll just say that if you want to see a movie, and granted, this is why the Captain America movie is like this is the third one.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't feel like I needed to avoid it, but I was avoiding it because nowadays in trailers they give you everything in a movie. So that's why I was avoiding it up until now. But since I was in the Force Awakens and the preview was on, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna step out for this one because the first trailer that they showed was X-Men Apocalypse, and I didn't see that either. Out of that.
I didn't see that. I know some people said they saw X-Men. Some people said they saw Independence Day. I saw Batman vs Superman. That was it. And then I saw like the Fifth Wave, like a bunch of like smaller movies.
When X-Men came on, I walked out of the theater and I was like, I'm gonna stand outside until I know I can hear that it's done, and I was distracting myself. So then it was done, and yes, it's that serious because I love X-Men.
No, I mean I know nothing about X-Men Apocalypse. I've seen like the image of Apocalypse that's on the poster. That's it.
Yeah, and I go back in, and then the next movie is Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, and I didn't see the trailer at all, but I know the character.
Yeah.
I know like the big
I got lucky with that one because they had like the preferred seating, and dude came up to me and was like, I think you're in my seat. So I actually missed the entire thing because we were trying to figure out seating arrangements.
Nice. But do you know the villains?
Nah. I mean, I know Batman and Superman is supposed to fight, and I know Wonder Woman's in it. Aquaman shows up for a minute or something.
All right, so
and I think Cyborg too or something.
I hope that you don't get spoiled because I'm not even gonna talk about it.
I'm looking forward to that movie, and I think a lot of people
I was distracted myself. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and I loved Man of Steel.
Yeah, I like Man of Steel a lot too.
Despite the unwarranted, I should say, hate that I think it gets.
I agree. That's a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other discussion we could have. Yeah.
We'll do our Superman when we watch Batman vs Superman. We'll just go hard on like all the Batman stuff.
We'll go hard on that. Yeah. But so I distracted myself for that. But then when Civil War came on, I decided to just watch it. And it was a mistake because, again, they show you too much. Yeah. So I won't spoil anything for you, but seeing what they're doing in that movie doesn't seem like what the ID thing, it doesn't seem it's going to be like.
I feel like they're trying to do the Civil War thing because it was an event. Yeah. So when it happened, like, there was one of the things where, like, I'll spoil Civil War a little bit. Do you care? I don't know if this is something they'll show in the movies at all. It's probably something you even know about.
The trailer, right?
Because Spider-Man they're basically reintegrating him into this movie and that.
I knew that.
And when they had Civil War, he goes and he reveals himself, and that was like a big deal about like people were like, it was like basically with Death of Superman. Yeah. When they had that, it was like on the news and everything. It was like, oh, Peter Parker showed himself, and like you could see like news channels were showing it and everything. Yeah. And it was just, you had the whole universe to go with, and you had like all of these characters in the comics, and it was big, and it had like gravity. But in this, there's really not like that many Marvel characters when you think about the cinematic universe. There's like 10 tops, because you're not including the X-Men, because they don't have the rights to that, or Fantastic Four. So you're missing out on a lot of that stuff. And I know you're going to introduce Spider-Man, and obviously you're probably going to integrate some of it.
I feel like they needed Spider-Man, and I'm glad they are.
Oh, definitely, because he plays a vital role in it. Like, that's why it was a big deal when he gets it, and he's aligned with Iron Man and all this stuff, and he has the Iron Spider suit. But it doesn't feel like there's enough to give it the weight that Civil War needs to have, because it feels more like it's like kind of like friendly fight or something. Like Civil War like denotes like a major event, whereas this, it's like 8 dudes are fighting. Because
inevitably they're gonna have to team up to the Infinity Wars are about to happen.
Exactly, and then that's the other thing that bothers me too, and I know that kind of ties into the whole thing where it's like none of this matters. The only ones that really matter are the Infinity Wars.
Yeah.
But you have like, you go into it, and one of the things I know is like they're kind of going hard into the Tony Stark and the Captain America like are at odds with each other. Because that's basically what Civil War was in the comics too. Yeah. But it doesn't fit so much in the movies, because they're trying very hard, and even over the course of the last like 3 movies, they've very much gone and they're like, Tony and Steve were very good friends, and were they really? Because they never really showed that in the movies. They tell you that, but they never really showed that at all.
And I would even say the opposite, actually.
You?
They didn't see. They seemed like they would butt heads a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So while they were friends in the sense that they had each other's backs, you can tell that
they
there
were
was
comrades,
tension.
but they never seemed friendly.
Yeah,
it never seemed
there was
like,
tension in that relationship.
Because the only thing that I saw from the trailer all was Iron Man was there, and Captain America and Bucky were there, or the Winter Soldier. I don't know what they were calling him in this movie. And they go and they throw the shields to the other one, and they hit Iron Man, and like I saw them like fighting, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of my friends I cried when he goes and he says, he's my friend, and he's like, I thought I was too, or something like that, to that effect.
And
it does nothing for me.
The Winter Soldier, so many people put it. I can't believe it. How many people I was seeing rated that movie so high on their.
The Winter Soldier?
Yeah, on their.
I liked Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier.
I didn't like you were saying. I just didn't feel. It didn't feel like such a. It didn't feel like a higher quality Marvel movie to me. It was a good movie, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like connection to the
What
characters.
I liked so much about Winter Soldier was it was a good movie taken out of the Marvel universe. It's a movie like the story and all the things that happened were like, if you just had that be things that occurred in the movie, it would totally fit. Like, you didn't need like the trappings of like Captain America and the Winter Soldier and like all that stuff. You didn't need it in there. So if you had just said, I want to tell a World War II story or something like that, and you just told that, it totally worked.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I appreciated out of it. But like, in regards to like being a Marvel movie, I agree with you. It really didn't do anything because all the stuff that happened ended up not mattering in the long run. The only thing that really mattered was Bucky isn't dead.
Yeah.
But like, I can see why Captain America be like, yeah, Bucky's my friend. I've known him since before I was frozen. Like, he's my boy. But then like Iron Man being like, but I thought I was your boy. It seems very like grade school. I don't know. It's like, no, he's my best friend, but I thought I was your best friend. Like, it feels very, I don't know, like there's nothing there. And it's like, all right, so we're fighting now, I guess, because you're not my best. You're my best friend, but I'm my best friend.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm only believing you're my best friend because you're telling me it. But that's the Civil War aside. I'm sure we'll talk about that eventually.
We definitely will.
To get back to Star Wars, though, what did you think about the actual, like, Death Star 2.0, with it being, like, a bigger...
just a bigger version, and just, how it harkened back again to the originals?
Yeah, and I guess to be a little bit more, like, this is what I'm trying to lead towards, is when he says, when it's like, oh, it's like, they show it, and here's the Death Star, and then here's Death Star 2.0, and it's bigger. And you have Han, it kind of goes back to him, and it goes, oh, it's just bigger.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about the humor of the movie?
I can see people not liking it because it's direct, it's making fun of itself. But I don't know, it didn't bother me too much, you know. But I don't know. How about you?
I liked it. That line, I think, fell a little short to me because, like, that is
There
basically
were a couple of those kind of lines, you know.
Yeah.
To be fair, but
Like I liked like when he goes up to Poe and he's like, "Oh man, I just want to do the right thing," and he's like, "Nah, you need a pilot." And he's like, "Yeah, I need a pilot." Like it was dialogue that I think was very witty and it was very like snappy, and I think it was good.
the relationship with Rey and Han,
Mhm.
you know, like you said, you liked how when they first encountered each other, it was interesting, you know.
Yeah.
And they built that relationship pretty fast.
But I thought that also, and I guess this is segue into our next thing, which is the bomb that I dropped beforehand, is I think that once they started like building that relationship was when it was heavily telegraphed to me. It's like Han's dying. It was like, they're getting very chummy, and then he goes up to her and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come with me?"
It was very clear how they were. It seemed like it was going to be that replacement crew for the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah,
you know,
they set that up very well. How'd you feel about the scene?
With what?
Oh, you want to talk?
I was going to go back to the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
So how they're again, it got destroyed by a handful of rebel fighters.
It was essentially the trench run
same
again.
thing.
Yep.
How does that happen? You build not one, you build two. We can understand maybe the second one because maybe you're building it already and it's a process that you want to just get out of the way and bang it out. But after 2 destroyed Death Stars, the same thing happens.
Yep.
I don't understand how that happens.
And this is a bigger one.
Yeah.
You know?
And first
one specific weak flaw.
And how does that even get by the rebels when they won the war?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like, again, like that.
How do you go ahead?
When I was sitting there watching it, like, that was definitely one of the things I was thinking about. And then, like, that's one of the points against them for not going into any of the politics at all, is because, like, going into it now with the knowledge
it just
that
felt too forced, or like too rushed, rather,
Exactly, because like when you're sitting there and you're watching it, the only thing you think of, I'll force this joke.
I did. I put it in there.
Strong within you.
Yeah.
But like the politics, it's kind of to go back to that, force the segue. Is when you're watching a movie, you're sitting there and you're thinking like, how the hell did they let them build this giant planet-size thing out of nowhere? And then like once now going into it, it's like, oh well, they probably knew all along, but they weren't able to actually do anything because it would be like a diplomatic relation issue where they're supposed to be demilitarizing. So like the only like effective army military wing like they have is they're quote-unquote rebels that they can't be associated with. So, like, like now when you go into it, it's like, oh, I guess it makes a little bit more sense as to how this could be a thing that exists and was made under their nose, which is probably because it wasn't. They probably had some knowledge of it, but they weren't able to do anything because they're supposed to be demilitarizing.
Yeah.
But because they never go into that stuff, you're in the movie kind of like, well, how the fuck did they make this planet killer? Like... This thing that can just shoot a beam that splits into 5 other beams and then kills an entire fucking solar system.
So what do you think is going to be the next threat?
It has to be something that's...
You think it'll be something with the Force?
I would hope so.
Maybe Snoke?
Maybe. Snoke is weird because it's a dumb name, for one.
Right.
It's a very dumb name. And they kind of just have him there. Like, I think...
He wasn't too intimidating.
Yeah, he was all holographic, and I'm gonna bet money that he's actually gonna be like 2 inches tall. And he was just
is that even how big he is?
Nah, like I doubt he's gonna be that big.
Yeah, of course.
It'd be interesting if he was to have him actually fight this giant thing. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, but it would have been interesting to see his character in some form,
and to do something, because like I get that why they want to focus so much on Kylo. And kind of like what's going on with him, and like how he was like used and everything. And, like, to fit in with, obviously, the death of Han in this movie. But, that was at the, it affected negatively, like, the rest of the New Order. Like, it didn't really, like, give them much gravity at all. It was so much focused on Kylo and everything that was going on with him, but it was like, what about everyone else? Like, you didn't really get anything with... I've heard a lot of people that were upset with Phasma.
For as grand the scale the Star Wars movies are, they're designed to be very personal.
Exactly.
You know, so it's very much about the Skywalker family and their close circles. You know,
but even in the other movies, you had Palpatine, and he seemed like a general threat.
yeah.
He was there with his lightning hands, you know, like he was doing
With his
doing dirt.
lightning fingers.
Yeah, you know, like he's over there, he's like getting in it, you know, he's a bad dude. But this one, it's like, well, Snoke is just yelling
Just
at people
voice,
through a hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah, that other dude that was like a general, I don't know his name, but he was the one that like gives that speech before they go and they blow up like the New Republic.
Yeah.
But like, you know, like I don't know his name. Like that's kind of an issue, right? Like I should probably know.
How did you feel that
dude's
the
name.
general sunned Kylo pretty much immediately? Their first encounter.
I mean, I didn't
first
mind
interaction,
it
right?
because like the way they set Kylo up is that he's supposed to be someone that's basically getting used. Like it's supposed to be like even like everything regarding his relationship with Snoke. And it's one of the things that I think even Han comes up to him.
You saying
like,
setting up in the previews? Because you said you didn't really see.
No,
the
I mean setting him up for like to
to
lead him towards the dark side.
Before then, Kylo was a pure badass. I mean, he stopped the.
He stops the bullet, and that
really
was
all the stuff
cool.
before him.
But then the next thing you see him doing is he's throwing a temper tantrum, like
That
blowing
happened
up
before?
fucking. Well, actually, that happens when he gets sunned.
Yeah,
So he gets sunned, and then he starts throwing it up, and it's like, well, all right.
Yeah,
so
so-
like, you know, it happens basically at the same time.
After
for me.
at that point, as soon as the first tantrum, maybe I'm having my things. So it happened after though, right?
I mean, to what happened to me, from what I can remember, is Kylo goes and he's basically lands on that planet, and then he does the badass thing where he stops the bolts, and then he goes.
well, it was all
and-
the same time anyway. The tantrum and
Yeah,
like
you know,
relatively.
like, and then effectively he comes back, and then he gets sunned, and then he goes and he throws a tantrum.
Okay.
So it happens kind of in unison, and I'm like, all right, so like.
But as
I
soon as that
get what's
moment, you saw
happening.
what they were. Yeah, exactly. You saw
Yeah,
where
because
they were
they were
positioning,
trying to
Kylo.
more or less do Anakin again, and
Right.
and then they bring it up then where like subsequently right after is he goes up with Snoke and he starts having a conversation with him, and they set it up along the way up until like the reveal with Han when he goes in, he's like, no, you're getting used. They kind of set that whole thing up where it's like he just wants to make his grandfather proud. He wants to be like his grandfather, you know, like that's kind of like the whole
I wish we would have got
thing
more
he's
of
going
that.
with. I mean, I feel like they did it.
But why would he want to be more like his grandfather? And not to mention, his grandfather ended by being good, so he was embracing more the light side.
It's very much like, and that's something that I expect,
So-
like a lot of Episode 8 will be showing because
We
like
expect it, but yeah, I know,
Yeah.
that's what we're hoping for, you know.
Well,
but-
that's I feel like it's definitely something I would have appreciated to see more because they mentioned in passing that like he was trained by he was Luke's Padawan, and then he gets tempted over to the dark side and he kills all the fucking other
yeah.
Jedi that were there in the academy, and that's why Luke goes into hiding because he failed. But they don't really go into any depth into that in this movie, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of what you're saying is like
That
you would
is
have
what I'm
wanted to
saying.
know what made him decide to like.
There was some questions around that, and then like Luke leaving.
Yeah,
You know,
well, Luke leaving was basically.
I'm
'cause
sure
he
that,
feels
these
he
are
failed.
obviously questions we're most likely going to get the answers to anyway.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
future.
Well, I mean, what they set up in this one is that when Han goes up to him, and like even the whole time where it's like like we kind of like, we sent him away, and it was probably a bad idea. We shouldn't have done that because what I expect it to be, and like the way that things kind of seem like in this movie is they sent him away, and he was young. Because obviously, I think it's set up in the other movies where it's like in order to be like a Padawan, they try to get him young.
Very young, yeah.
So they sent away their young son to go and be trained by their uncle. And then what's kind of the question mark is, what did Luke do to fuck up? How did Snoke come through? And like, what did Snoke say to them to be like, oh man, like, nah, being evil's cool. Like, did he show him some like the evil powers that you get, or was he like, yo, your
Yeah, I really can't wait to
grandfather
find
was
out.
Vader?
I can't wait to find out more about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, and
There's so
because
much
he actually
more.
has
I was expecting to
he
see
has the
more.
mask.
Right.
So I assume that maybe like scopes, like
Snoke.
breath mint scopes came up to him, and Scopes toothpaste came up to him, and he said, "Here's the mask. Your father was dope. He would choke people out, and I got lightning hands." And like he showed him all the cool shit, and then like Luke is like, "Oh, just there's this ball, and it's gonna shoot beams
he
at
was
you."
the last Jedi, you know.
Yeah,
so he
'cause-
didn't know how to. It's true, you know. He needed someone to. It was a lot for him to take in at that time, you know.
Yeah,
It
and I
was-
mean, there's nothing to really say that Luke was really qualified in the first place to
That's
do
what I'm
it.
saying. Yeah, exactly. there was a lot thrown onto him in those first 3 movies.
Yeah, that's why I expect like 8's gonna basically like start off with like here's how Luke fucked up, because I feel like 8 is gonna like what needs to happen in 8 is they can't rely on Luke too much. Luke probably is gonna die, or he's gonna be like someone that's only relevant to that first quarter of the movie. Because if they go throughout the whole movie making Luke be an important plot point, they fucked up again. Because it's not like the issue with this one is like just let go of the past. Let the new dudes get in there. You can't have the whole movie be Luke focused.
So you also hoping that 8 and 9 are more closely together, like a sequel? Like 8 is the first part of 9? You know what I mean?
I actually like to get I guess back to 7. I didn't really like that they ended it on here's Luke and like a helicopter shot circling around him, and then
What, the cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Why not?
I didn't like that.
Why?
It didn't make the movie seem.
Well, first, did you like the style of it? Well, let's talk from that first.
I mean, I guess I don't mind necessarily a helicopter shot and going around it. I think it was shot well enough, I guess.
Because I liked how they didn't speak any words.
Yeah, and he goes and she holds out the saber and everything. Yeah. Like, here you go. But like I guess the imagery of the here you go is an issue in and of itself, because like it's not supposed to be. Consider the lightsaber as baton, like as we said before. Rey should not be passing the baton back to the old guard. It should be the old guard passing the baton onto the new generation. So it's a reverse imagery that you really shouldn't have, because that's the main issue, like of one of that I really have with the movie, is that in this one, you know, the new characters were far better than the old ones, and like, you know, to watch, like they're old.
It's true, the relationship between Leia and Han.
Yeah, and like there was this one specific scene. Like Leia had a whole bunch of problems that I know I'll let you talk about.
Yeah.
But Han specifically, he goes up to Chewie, and they're shooting outside on I think it was on the Star Killer or wherever. They're in the snow, and he goes up to Chewie. He's like, "Let me borrow that," and he's got his bow, and you see him like struggle to lift the fucking prop up to shoot it. And you just look at it and you just feel pity for Harrison Ford. Like, it's just like he acted in this movie a lot more than he did in the other ones. But then you see it and he's just like, he's old. And then like
you can see from some of his movements
when he's running in the Millennium Falcon, when they have like the two dudes that are coming, like the two factions that are coming against them, and you just see him running, and it's like that's an old man run, and you're seeing like everyone else run, and they're just more in shape. Like it's just like you watch, and it's kind of like it's
yeah,
a little, it's pitiable.
It's the same way I felt with Leia.
Yeah,
you know, you can see it was visible on the characters, Han and Leia, how they've aged, you know, and just their interactions with each other. It just didn't feel, it didn't feel like they had that history with each other. And
I think a lot of that too was because they decide to like gloss over a lot of it for some strange reason.
That whole relationship with them, and then them having the son, talking about our son.
Yeah,
I don't know. I didn't really feel it, you know. Yeah. And then that's why, although I liked Kylo and I appreciate what they're trying to do with his character. Yeah. Overall, I don't know if I think they could have done a lot better with him.
I would say of all the new characters, and I think the new characters are very strong, Kylo's definitely the weakest.
The weakest, yeah. Yeah, I would say that. Me, I'm a big guy when it comes to masking the unknown. Obviously, you know my name, and I just like having that level of mystery behind a character's true appearance. Yeah. And as soon as he unmasked himself, I feel like he lost the level of intimidation. You know, like he just seemed like another guy, and then he started fitting into this image as the movie went on as just some whiny brat. Yeah, which is not really something I agreed with. You know?
I think that's what they were trying to set up.
No, I totally, I understand that. You know, that was deliberate. You know. Yeah. And I just disagree with the choice. You know.
Well, it depends really on what happens, because in the next movie, like, you know, he got fucked up by Rey, and he has like a scar across his face.
No, I know. And then
right?
hopefully, like, then he'll merge with like the suit or whatever.
Yeah, and plus now he killed his father, so like he kind of is like there's no going back almost in a way. So like. And that's why it feels like a lot of Kylo is basically like, what were we trying to do with Anakin? How can we show it we get it right this time? So like they kind of show him being whiny and very petulant But in
Yeah,
this
it
one,
was all deliberate. And
Yeah.
then the thing, though, I should say, though, is the reason why I don't have it as a big slight against the movie
Mhm.
and why I overall have very positive impressions of it is because, realistically, Star Wars is a franchise that's been around forever. When was the first movie? 70s?
70s,
It
yeah.
was the 70s, right? So there's certain things you just have to, like, I want to say accept, and it's the fact that they're approaching it differently, you know? Like, he's a character that, although I would have appreciated him having the mask the whole time, I could totally see where they're trying to do something a little different, and they're building it to something where, you know, now we have a reason to hate him. You know, we have a
Right.
reason to dislike his character, and now they can build on top of that.
And it subverts expectations in a way, because this way it's like, well, you expect him to basically be like, oh, well, here's our Vader again.
Right.
Well, it's like, but in a way, no.
Right.
You know?
And also, knowing that we're gonna get 2 more movies in 8 and 9, do you think there's a level of like tolerance, I guess I should say, of fans should have, knowing that, all right, some things are gonna be explained in 8 and 9, and you know, taking that Star Wars is a franchise that's been around for a long time,
Yeah.
and knowing that the future is within 2 more movies, do you think fans, some of their like maybe some of their nitpicks with this movie now, or some of their major complaints even, you think they should maybe should they stay with those concerns going into the movies, or you think they should that we're gonna get answers to a lot of these questions, and we should be okay with it? It's just a matter. Basically, to simplify the question, is do you think that fans should be okay with the feeling that, you know what, this movie had some loopholes or maybe some unanswered questions that I feel are pertinent, but they will be answered in the future?
See, I feel like that kind of goes into like a thing that I want to eventually discuss is like, I feel like there's very much a lot of, you know, you say should a lot, but like, it's mostly like people are doing it, and do I think they should? No. Like, I feel like there's a lot of leeway given to this movie where it's like, it was safe, and they're basically like saying that that's a great thing. Like, it's really great how safe it was, but it's like, is it really? And like, you can sit here and you can say, it's like, well, we think in 8, Luke's gonna die, so on and so forth, this is what's gonna happen, or we think that by 9 they'll have done this, that, and the third. But I think, for my own part, you can have cliffhangers, but you should have still made something that is self-contained. And I think that once 8 and 9 have come out, I feel like a lot of people will look back and they'll say 7 was definitely the weakest. And I feel like it's getting a lot of leeway because of its purpose as a transitional film.
So you see that leeway sticking. That level
Until
of
I
tolerance.
think all of the movies are out, and then I think people will
then
look
people
back
look at
on
it
it and they'll say,
as a collective.
yeah, 7 was definitely weak. And I think that a lot of people are very much like it happens all the time with new releases where a new thing comes out and there's a lot of sunk cost fallacy where people are very much like they eat up all of the media and everything going into it, and they get so hyped, and it's like, well, when it comes out, are you really going to say that you were disappointed? Like, you know, if the best thing you can say about the movie is that it was safe, it reminded you of Star Wars, and that's good enough for me, like, at what point are you doing yourself a disservice by not taking the franchise to task for not doing something new? You can say that George Lucas was like, and I think we mentioned this a little bit beforehand, where he, you know, if there's one thing you can say about the man, in the prequels at least, is that he was anything but safe. Like, he definitely needed a filter, and he definitely needed someone to kind of like hold him back and like prevent him from being a perfectionist and everything. But he at least took risks, and I think that with this one, it needed to be a film to kind of like remind people where it's like, okay, this is in quote unquote good hands now. It won't be something that goes off the rails like the other one. This is something that you could and should be excited about. But to sit here and say like, oh man, it exceeded my expectations. It's like, how low were your expectations then? Like, did the prequels do that?
That's exactly it.
That much damage? Like, and you shouldn't be able to just sit here and say where it's like, you know, well, it wasn't the prequels. Fuck it, let's go see it another 5 times. Like, that's kind of like, that's a problem. And it's
interesting, you know, to think about, because that's probably what's happening for some people, you know.
Oh, definitely. And it's a situation where you sit into it, and it's like a separate conversation we can have if you want to get into it, where it's like, then does the movie actually do anything or add anything of value? Like, it's if we're taking a art tack, if we're coming at it from that angle, then what did it really contribute to overall the Star Wars cinematic universe and cinematic universe overall? Like, if it's only just retelling a story and basically saying, like, oh yeah, by the way, we can do this, trust us, we can come up with something new. Like, you'll have to wait 2 years to get something new.
What the intentions were, you know?
Yeah, but it feels very artless. You know what I mean? It's like to take it to video games a little bit. If you think of like Batman, and you had Arkham Knight, and you had Arkham Asylum first, then you had Arkham City, and then you had
Origins,
and then you had Knight. When Arkham came out, you know, it was lauded. People loved it. It was great. City came out. It was great. It tried something new, did a new thing. Origins came out. People were like, it's really more of the same. I think we can let them get away with this once, but in the next one, they really need to do something new. They need to kind of do something innovative. To be fair, it was a different team. So let me do something then, I guess, a better comparison, because it's the same team. Uncharted. You have Uncharted 1, right? Uncharted 1, especially because
the different team could just be JJ.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Because maybe, you know, to piggyback, just to go off of that real quick, JJ, you know, how his style seemed like it fit well for that kind. Like, for the old way he directed the Lucas made the movies in the past. I think JJ his style fit.
And you know what? To even piggyback onto it again,
so maybe
I think it's a good analogy
in the future.
Is because, especially now that Knight's come out, I'm looking back on like what Origins was. Origins, I think, once Arkham Knight's come out, and like I looked back on what Origins was, I think Origins was a better game. Even if it was made by the B team, it wasn't made by Rocksteady.
Opinions change,
but you know,
as Knight, when the overall impressions for when Knight first came out, very positive. But then as a few weeks go by, you see that changing.
Anyone's thought about that, and like I know a bunch of people that when it came out.
I'm not saying Origins.
Oh no, I mean Knight. Like I think that we hear at the end of the year, and I think that people if that movie came out back in March, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's thought about that game in a very long time, and I think that now, especially at the end of the year, all this other good stuff's come out. You'll see Game of the Year list. I'd be very surprised to see Arkham Knight on any of them. Yeah. Like I feel like by summer was when I started seeing a lot of people turn around opinions on the game, because I was down on it really after it came out.
Knight came out in June.
Was it June?
Yeah.
So I think that by the end of that summer,
it only took like a couple weeks to a few weeks till I started seeing more people.
Yeah, I know with the people that I know, like personally at least.
You see when people get to that section with the tanks, I mean, realistically, how long
that tank shit sucked, and even the story sucked. And the thing that bothered me so much about Night 2 was, I tried to stay out of a lot of the hype and everything that was going on, but it was very much apparent that when it came out that it was going to be Jason Todd. Yeah. It wasn't really a surprise to me that they were basically doing Under the Red Hood again.
Yeah.
But Rocksteady was very adamant. It's like, no, it's not Jason Todd. We're not doing Under the Red Hood. And then the game comes out, and then it's Jason Todd. And it's Under the Red Hood. So it's kind of like...
Thanks for spoiling that for me, but okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
So, unmarked spoilers all up in this podcast. This is what we're going to call this episode, Unmarked Spoilers.
Unmarked spoilers for Star Wars, Civil War, and...
Batman. Whatever else coming up. I'm going to spoil the Mario timeline. So, Yoshi was there, and there was a baby, and they dropped off the baby Mario, but then how is baby Mario playing golf with regular Mario? It doesn't... I don't know. I'll tell you how. We'll get into that later. But when they get up to it, it's like, with Arkham, it was very much like it wasn't anything interesting about it to me because it was retreading this old storyline. And, I mean, it had a whole bunch of other problems gameplay-wise with too much reliance on the tank and not enough reliance on the team stuff, because I feel like that was far more interesting of the gimmicks to back in that game. They definitely backed the wrong horse. But, story-wise, overall, it didn't really do anything. And because between the two... This kind of, to take it back to Star Wars in a little bit, to kind of get to the point as to how we even got into this in the first place, it didn't do enough to differentiate itself from those previous two. Whereas when you look at Origins, they had added that detective mode, and
they tried some things. The multiplayer, it was interesting.
They at least
gave an attempt to do things. In this one, it was basically like, well, here's a city again. Our big thing is that we add in a vehicle. But you never want to use the vehicle because the controls suck and flying is faster and more fun, and like it's just something you'd rather do. We're going to force you to use this vehicle a lot, but like, you know, you really aren't going to choose to use the vehicle that much on your own.
Right.
So, you know, to get back into the Star Wars point where it's like people gave a lot of leeway to...
You think right now we're in the honeymoon phase?
Yeah, and I think that's why the comparison between like Arkham isn't as strong, because when I think about Arkham didn't really get the leeway, but when you think about like, because it was Asylum, City, Origins, Night. Origins got shat on pretty hard because it was like people would sat there and said it's a B team, and that was the excuse.
They had a bad rap from the beginning.
Yeah. So they were just kind of like, as soon as that came out, it was like, nah, it was WB made it, wasn't Rocksteady, and it shows. I think realistically, if that could have been something that happened with 7, which is why they needed to be safe, because then they would have said Abrams fucked up.
Yeah.
So Abrams needed to go out there and kind of prove that he is able to go and make another Star Wars movie. But that's why I think the Uncharted comparison works more. It's more apt, because you have 1, then 2, then 3, and now you have 4. And you saw a lot when 1 came out, people were like, oh, it's alright, it's whatever. And 2 came out, people were like, oh, Uncharted is great. And like Uncharted 2 was the one that like people were super into. But then Uncharted 3 came out. And when you started looking at all the reviews, what everyone was saying, it's like, yeah, it's great, but it's more Uncharted.
Right.
And I don't think they can get away with doing that for another game.
Which is what they changed with 4.
Yeah.
But to what extent, we'll see.
Exactly. But that's what happens, I think, with this... with the, you know, this movie series you kind of get into, is you're able to sit there and you're able to say, you know, to make the comparison between the two, okay, I'll give you leeway once, but if you do it again, you know, you get taken to task at that point. Which is why I think that once 8 comes out...
Which it'll have a different director.
Yeah. And I think that that's when they'll start doing new things.
Yeah.
But when you think about, like, a video game, and for both, I think it's an interesting question to take, where it's like, how much leeway should Uncharted 3 really get? Like, is it really a right thing to say, well, it's more Uncharted 2, and I guess that's good enough for me. If they do it again, then I'd be disappointed. And is it right to say that for a movie? Like, I mean, at what point is it that you should really take someone to task for not doing something new and interesting? Because at that point...
It seems like that's why they hired JJ, you know, again, to bring up the...
Mm-hmm.
That's like probably the reason why they brought him in.
I think also he showed himself with being able to do, like, Star Trek and a lot of other, like, reboots and soft reboots.
So who knows? Maybe the next one is when they'll start tapping into new territory.
Oh, I definitely expect 8 will, but that's also why I feel like once all 3 of them come out, people will be like, yeah, 7 was more of the same, and that's why it's so weak. But, you know, for people that are sitting there now... Or it could be
the strongest because it's
the other ones are terrible. It's possible. It's possible. I mean,
let's hope it's not that, though.
Yeah, and I don't expect it to be. I mean, I really do fully expect that they would... You have to also think about...
It's a mature franchise. They can't let it mess up now.
Yeah, it's too big to fail to a degree, but also, like, if one of the... yeah, right? But, like, if one of the main failings of this movie was too much of a reliance on old characters, I mean, it's a little bit, like, dark to say, but, like, if Episode 9 is going to come out in 4 years tops, right? Or being, like, more, like, as idealistic, 2019, right? How many of these people are going to be working still? You know? Mark Hamill's in a lot of things lately, but I feel like he only has so many more years going in for him, too. You know, like, how much of a part can he as a person play? Like, taking it out of, like, to think about it just as, like, realistically in real life and being pragmatic about it, outside of the universe of 8. It's like, well, obviously in universe, he could probably sit there and he could train Rey a whole bunch and blah, 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 but, like, Mark Hamill as a person, a real-life person, is old. And he can only do... so much acting and moving, and you know he's going to retire and want to just relax. Like, I'm sure he likes being Luke a whole bunch, but you know, at some point,
though, got in better shape.
Yeah,
for this movie, you know. But
I mean, in some of the things he's been in Flash, he looks pretty good. Like he's definitely like he's agile, and I guess
the Tinkerer, right? What's his name or something?
Shit,
I don't know.
Something with a T. The Twister, some shit.
But yeah, so. I mean, who knows? Maybe I don't think they'll get any over-the-top action scenes like we saw in the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think...
I think they also like very specifically made it, and I appreciate that, actually.
They definitely changed that with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they
there was no
back,
flips,
yeah,
none of that shit, which I liked. I like that.
Although I like that scene with Yoda. I know you didn't like
Hell
it.
no, stupid
I
fuck.
it. But
Is Yoda doing backflips and coming at this fucking guy?
so let's go to the next. So creatively, what would you want
An 8?
as the next major force or next threat against the galaxy?
I mean, I think like you kind of said beforehand, where
Something to manipulate the force that's a threat.
well, Star Wars is always very like big in the world, but in scope, it's always very personal.
No, but it always needs that threat though.
Definitely.
You know.
But I feel like that's kind of like what they can maybe bring
You think
up
they
with.
won't?
You know, it depends what happens with Kylo. You know, I mean, you know, Mr. Mouthwash is clearly going to be an important figure, and what happens with him is going to be very like influential, I guess, in how it's going to turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they set up in this movie a pretty decent dichotomy of like, you had Rey more or less fuck up Kylo Ren, and then, you know, like, who knows what would have happened if the ground didn't split? Like, would she have killed him and gone to the dark side? Like, I think there's like an interesting thing to kind of explore with that, and I feel like to see how I think the next movie is going to be very big on like the training of Rey and the training of Kylo, and then basically
you don't think they'll do a jump where it'll be she has already been trained by Luke, and then maybe they'll do flashbacks.
could be. I don't know. I think the flashback.
I would like to see the training though. I would like in some form. I would want to see the training.
That's why I feel like they would
So-
have to do it that way. It'd be a strange thing because they could easily do some form of a time jump.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know, because flashbacks are really, like, there really haven't been many flashbacks in the Star
but
Wars
if we're
universe.
talking about, you know,
I mean, in
the-
7, they've introduced, I guess, where she has, like, some sort of force visions.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something they'll do. Because I feel like they need to, at some point, say what happened with Luke
parents.
and why everything fucked up.
Oh, I think you're saying right.
I mean, they definitely need to say something about how Rey is Luke's daughter or some shit.
You think
but-
so?
I mean,
That would be. You don't think that would be like too obvious?
it would, but they set it up in every way they could have in this movie with the
But then they have to speak of the mother. Who's the mother?
could just be anyone. I mean,
don't
the
know.
mother is less important than
I don't know.
it just
I would
being
wanna
Luke's
know.
daughter.
That would be something I'm very interested in knowing. Then, you know.
I mean, I think it'd be an interesting thing to know, but like if they just said your mother's name was Sarah and she died or some shit, or like Kylo
Yeah.
killed her along with everyone else and I wasn't able to save her, and that's one of the other reasons why I've put into exile.
That's a
Like, I mean, they could definitely do it, but like the mother is something that I think could easily be glossed over in that manner and not
yeah,
be
they don't
as
have to
important.
take too much time on it.
Whereas, like, I
They
think
can make it impactful in a short amount
Yeah.
of time.
definitely, it's not something you need to dwell on. Whereas in this movie, you had like the lightsaber calling out to Rey. You had like kind of like the whole like everything about
Speaking of that, I didn't like how she ran away.
yeah.
You know, I understand. You know, it's just the design choices is what I'm disagreeing
Oh,
with.
yeah.
You know, I don't know. I just didn't like that she didn't embrace it. You know, like I can understand shying away from it,
yeah.
but the lightsaber, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like not just because you take it, you have this crazy responsibility. You look at the situation you're in. You know, you're about to leave with so there's a lot of shit that you know that's about to go down.
Yeah.
Why not just take the lightsaber?
Well,
you know?
true, but she's also very much like at that point in time in the movie, she was very adamant about I gotta get back to Jakku. I'm waiting for my
Yeah.
parents or whoever it was that left her there.
Yeah.
So like that's why she's been there the whole time. So like
Still, though, I would have taken the lightsaber.
Oh yeah, I mean, given the situation, I definitely would have taken it too.
Yeah.
Like hell yeah, lightsaber, and then I would have immediately cut my arm off.
Because knowing, like, oh my god, all this is real. The Force is real. You know, everything.
Well,
all
as
the
soon as she
legends-
sees Han, and she's like,
No,
it's
yeah, he
real, all of
confirms
it. It's
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
shit.
That's what I'm saying. At that point, she already knows all this,
Yeah.
and she's feeling these things.
It's a lot of like unrelenting heroes kind of type thing where it's like, you know, like
Yeah, it is.
I had this burden placed on me. Do I really want it? Same thing with Finn in a way too,
Right.
where it's like, you know,
He
like
ran-
nah,
he
I'm
ran
gotta
away
bounce,
first.
and he's talking to those trucker dudes to like take him off of the planet. But then he's like, oh shit, I love Rey. And
I really loved Flynn.
I think Finn was great. Yeah, he was wonderful.
His scenes are pretty epic.
Yeah, and the actor, he sold it a lot. He was really well. It was,
Sold it very well.
It was awesome, you know.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I can see why they'd be like a little bit wary about everything that's going on, because like they personally themselves were all very like dealing with things on a small scale, and then very quickly things got very big and like the Force and like, oh shit, like the world and the universe and all of these, like I'm a hero and like all these things just kind of like tossed onto them, and it's like, you know, to have to deal with that burden in such a short amount of time, it's understandable, I think, for them to kind of like relent a little bit and be like, nah, like that ain't me, ain't what I'm about.
You know, I would like to see. Oh, are you done with?
Well, I was gonna get into. I want to hear what you want to say.
Nah, I was gonna jump to what would be interesting to see in the future.
I was gonna say, because you brought up the lightsaber too, where it's like I wanted to ask what you thought about how quickly Finn was able to use, and even
that was another disappointment of mine. Seeing Finn use the lightsaber, and granted, he was shot by freaking Chewie's blaster.
Yeah.
Bow.
Well, it's mostly that he was able to use it in the first place, right? Because like you remember in the
up
original,
until that point, I thought it was just you had to be a very trained,
super trained, right?
You know, to use the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And then at this moment, it was like it kind of diminished the mythos, I guess, of the lightsaber and the weapon, the strength of the Jedi with the lightsaber. You know.
Well, even then, you can even put it to Rey too, where like she very quickly was like able to like
use the Force,
come into everything about the Force very quickly.
That didn't bother me as much as Finn, but I can understand.
Well, I think because they set Rey up at least as a Force user, whereas they didn't do that at all for Finn.
They're gonna set her. That's why to go off of that, it would be interesting to see Rey turn to the dark side, and Kylo Ren turn to the light side somehow, and have a situation where maybe the way her parents died, or maybe they do die in front of her. I don't know. Something happens to her, and the reason why. She was able to use the Force like that. She's the most powerful Jedi that there could be, you know.
Yeah.
And she trains and she gets stronger, and maybe she's the threat, you know.
That would be interesting.
So to see it reversed like that would kind of throw me for a loop, you know. Especially,
I think that would be cool. I think it'd be hard to do.
It would be hard. It would be difficult,
especially because in this one they set up very clearly that Kylo is like
absolutely
straight dark side.
So that's why it would be interesting, you know, to see. Because some of the things here, I wasn't expecting him to get that characterization. Because you know they took off his mask because you know to show emotions and whatnot. But to see the way he was depicted, I was not expecting at all. And to see in the next movie if they throw us for that loop again, I would just love something like that. But,
I'd be down for that. I feel like more, you know, subverting expectations in general would be something I'd be super interested in, and like to make it a whole new thing, you know.
So to go back to Finn with the lightsaber, apparently in the trailers they were depicting him. I saw a picture with him with a lightsaber, so I thought he was a Jedi. I was like, he's gonna be a Jedi, but I saw him with a stone. Because remember the trailer, he was a stormtrooper. Yeah, it's like that's interesting. Why was he wearing a stormtrooper armor then? With the limited information we both had going into it. So it turns out maybe. But as of right now, he's not a Jedi to us.
Well, are you going to bring up what I think? I don't know if this is what you're going to bring up. If like I've seen a lot of people say maybe that he does. Well, the marketing.
How do you feel? Oh, well, I guess I can't because you weren't really involved with the marketing.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about it.
So did you saw him at all depicted with the lightsaber?
I only saw that show like the one time. So did you think he was the standout thing was him waking up in the desert in Jakku, and then seeing Han and Chewie.
Jedi.
And then I remember seeing the lightsaber that Kylo had that looked like, you know, it had the sword things going on with it.
Because when I walked into the movies, I saw the split picture before, and then I saw Flynn with the blue lightsaber. I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even see that beforehand. I've since seen it. Like with Phasma, I feel like Phasma. I don't know the marketing at all because I didn't follow it at all. But Phasma felt like she was supposed to be quote unquote important to me, only because of the actress. And she's an actress that I know, like she's in Game of Thrones. She's Brienne, but that's
right.
Yeah,
I saw her in the armor, in the casting shot. I mean, on the set shot.
Yeah,
and I figured she would have a bigger role in this movie.
Yeah, because I've had some of the people that I've talked to about the movie, like in discussion, and when I was like, I think Kylo was kind of one of the more disappointing characters, they're like, I think Phasma was, and I was like, well, was she really supposed to be a character? Like,
she was probably just the Boba Fett.
Yeah, I feel like maybe she'll be more important in 8 and 9. I think she'll definitely come back. But like, that said the same thing I said to them was like when they said that she was kind of unimportant. I was like, well, that's like saying that Parkman wasn't fully realized. Was he supposed to be? Like, I don't know, because I've been so devoid of the marketing. Like, did they market her as the new Boba Fett? And like, did they make a big deal out of Phasma? Like, I don't know, but like going into the movie, she had 2 scenes, and like she never felt like she was supposed to be important. So like to kind of say that like, oh, she's not fully realized as a character is like
right. And I think that's an important distinction to make whenever discussing these things. Is that one, if you're discussing what you would rather have chosen as the design or the direction that that they took for the movie, or if you just think that they're missing something, you know, because there's a difference between them deliberately leaving some of her part out, either to have her similar to what Boba Fett's character was, and or maybe to build her up in the future. But I guess at that point, it's just, do you agree with how they handled it,
or does marketing lead you astray in one way,
right.
and like in
and
what
did
point?
You expect it? You know,
and like how much credence should you really give marketing in that sort of situation?
Right.
You know, and like
it's a level of, you know, you can have expectations going into a movie based on what the promotional material feeds you.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you have to be careful about
it. It can be exactly, and then, you know, because the director may intend on something completely different than what the marketing is pushing. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and that's something you see in a lot of things too, and I think that's why we, you know, I can at least speak for myself, but I think this is why you do it. It's like we go on blackouts for certain things where it's like, it's not really necessarily, or like I guess part of it
especially
is like,
for things you know you want to see.
Yeah,
you feel passionate
you
about.
see enough to know that this is something you're interested or want to see, but to a certain point, it's like you need to know every single detail about it before you go into it. It's not really a matter of sitting there and saying like, I want to be surprised or anything like that. It's more of like, how much are you letting marketing and hype kind of negatively impact you at a point, because you're setting a bar.
It's influencing you one way or the other.
Yeah,
you know?
It's very easy to sit
and
here
a lot
and say
of times
it's not.
It is.
Yeah, even when you think it's not.
Right.
You know, mostly when you think it's not. You know, because you feed into something so much, and I think that this ties a little bit into something we were saying earlier, with you know, when you get into this marketing and stuff, is like you don't really see it. Like it's the sunk cost fallacy. Is you kind of sit there and you say, I've devoted so much time to it. What would happen? Like you cognitively, you sit there and you say like, I don't think this was as good as I wanted it or expected it to be, but because I've been poring over websites and like looking at every picture and like pictures of sets or like development previews of games and stuff like that, like, am I going to sit here and say it was not good? Like, what happened to all that time I spent getting excited for this thing?
Right.
You know, like it ends up being like you trick yourself into saying.
And at some point, I mean, realistic, not at some point. I think at every point, the person must realize that it's on them at that point. You know, it's like you must understand your level of the level of, you know, you gotta acknowledge your level of I'm failing to find the word here, of like you
excitement.
being into a level of excitement, of looking forward to or anticipation for
your
something,
level of hype. You know, you need to keep that in check.
Right.
Hype can get very quickly out of check, and it can be an adverse
thing.
thing
To your detriment.
Yeah,
you know? To your experience, to enjoying your experience.
Man, you know,
Sure.
it's you know, you people talk about like spoilers and everything, right? And
that's, for me, that's the main reason why I don't watch trailers, because I can separate the marketing from what the director intends for the movie. And like while I was watching Star Wars for the first time, and it's a completely another discussion we can have, but you know, I feel like we've seen enough of movies in general, and we're so involved with entertainment, video games, movies, shows, whatever it is, that sometimes when you watch a movie, it's hard to separate yourself from the viewer experience and from the critic experience.
Yeah.
So when I was first watching Star Wars, and it's interesting because when I went to see it with Duel. My friend, you probably hear more.
I think
about him.
you probably
you'll
know
see him
Duel.
around the site. But anyway, I saw it with Duel. That was the second time watching it. And his first time, he said he didn't pick up a lot of the things that he picked up on the second time. But some of the things we were talking about, I picked up on the first time.
Exactly.
Because it's just like I just had. You just become aware
Purity
of
of
some of
experience,
these
and, you know,
the director's strategies and how they're going about making the movie.
Yeah, and your own personal point of view going into it, you know, like
right. So you see what they're trying to do and how they're positioning people. Right. So it's just a level of you have to acknowledge that, you know.
Oh, definitely.
So.
I feel like with movies, it's harder too, because movies are very much focused on like in comparison to video games, right? So in a movie, you have a story. It's definitely more story oriented in a lot of ways. It's also a shorter experience. You know, you only have 2 hours, and a lot of movies, like you see a lot of trailers now that kind of show you that whole experience. Like I can watch a trailer right now for a comedy, and like I can probably say that I've probably seen the best jokes. Like they're trying to sell you a movie on it, you know. And like I can also pretty much tell you like, oh, this is the story. I don't need to see it. I can watch a trailer for a bunch of movies.
That's one thing I would like to do is to go back after I see a movie is to watch the trailer. So we should probably do that with Star Wars.
I'd be definitely down for that.
Yeah.
Like how much did it show you? Like what was the real like thing? But like, you know, like with Star Wars, because I don't feel like it definitely gave away, from my recollection of at least that initial trailer, I don't think it gave too much away of the story. But I think other movies have, like you were saying before, with
we would have been
War.
able to see everything from it first, but they didn't really give too much away. So
exactly. But like you were saying before with Marvel, with Civil War, you feel like you pretty much know
everything,
exactly who everything's
that's how most movies are these days.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas with video games, it's really more of like trying to sell you on the marketing or like an initial sell. It's a little bit different because, like, to be honest, the story of video games isn't the forefront of the video game. So like they try to sell you on the atmosphere of it. More or less you get a CG thing that's totally separate. It's not really representative of the game.
The game experience is really the main thing. Right?
So like it's a totally separate thing. You know, like it's something specifically created for this, whereas the trailer for a movie is cut with some scenes from the actual movie itself. That's why with games, I think that what I do with, and like the way that I try to keep it is like at press events and whatever, like they'll show a trailer at E3 or a Direct or like the Sony experience or whatever it is, and I take that as being like, this is what they want me to know. This is what the publisher and developer want me to know about the game. If you're showing me it there, that's pretty much like that's the footage I'll get, and like I don't really go and search for too much footage otherwise. Like it's not really a matter of like spoiling the game or anything like that. It's more of like how much do I really truly need to know before going into it. And again, like I feel like
especially for things you know ahead of time that you want to experience anyway. So.
Right, and I feel like for these particular things, it's like this is what the developer feels like it's something I should know about before going into it. And usually when you have trade events, it's not just like here's a trailer, here's another trailer. It's usually here's a trailer, and then they bring someone out and they talk about the game and they give you some little detail about it, or you see a demo or something along those lines. And that's usually like what I can get, and then I'll look into a little bit more until I'm satisfied, you know, whatever. But I don't go like Metal Gear, perfect example. I saw all the trailers that they put out for E3, but I never saw any of the trailers they put out outside of it. Like, you know, as the movie came out for Metal Gear 5, they were like, you know, as the game came out, and they put out more trailers close to release. And I know that there was even one that came out like the day before or whatever.
Yeah,
and
had a lot of coverage for the game.
Yeah, and like it was basically just like at that point you knew Kojima was about to leave Konami and everything. And I was like, yeah, I don't need to see it.
You're good.
Yeah, you're something I can check afterwards.
Just get in. Yeah.
You know, and
do you
like,
ever go back to watch? Do you ever do that?
And it's interesting
you go back
to
watch how the marketing pushes.
Yeah, for games, I think it's a very interesting thing to do, especially because with games, especially, you get to see like a lot of times there's a lot of cut stuff, or like you can see like, oh, this is what they're doing.
How the development changes.
Yeah,
right.
And with Kojima, it's a little different specifically too, because like I think, especially after Metal Gear Solid 2, where like they kind of sold you on like everything being like, oh, you're gonna play a Snake throughout the whole game, and then it ends up being that you only play as him for like 2 hours. And they
went
like
Halo 2.
Yeah, but it was so incredible for Metal Gear Solid 2 specifically because like they went and they
Halo 2 is
put in.
Metal Gear Solid 2 did it the same. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out 2002, was it?
2001.
2001 was it?
2001. It was early.
It did it before, obviously, Halo 2.
Yeah.
But I remember the reactions to that. It was,
yeah.
It was
but it was also like, you know, with this one, what they had done is they actually put like Snake in those images, and they had footage of like Snake on the strut as you playing as Snake, but really you never play as Snake at all on the strut. So like they actively went out of their way to be like, this is what you'd be doing. So when it came up, it's like, no, you're playing as Raiden the whole time. And then I remember people were saying things like, I must eventually play as Snake because I've seen the images of Snake on the struts. It's like, well, no, it's just that they ended up putting him in there to fool you. Right. You know, like, and that's, I think, an interesting thing because it's the use of marketing and trailers and everything to kind of specifically actually affect your experience. You know, like they've gone out of their way to do this thing to you and use it as a part of the experience, like an extension of the experience.
Yeah.
And like the point of MGS2 overall kind of, you know, that's like a separate thing, but it fits very well into that, the theme of the game.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting thing to do. So it's like, with Kojima, you kind
It'd
of
be
takes
interesting to
those
see how we think of the Star Wars marketing.
things.
Now that we've seen it.
Well, I know some of the marketing is crazy because now post movie, I've seen like BB-8s on like
I love
oranges and stuff.
I love BB-8.
I love BB-8. He's it was really cool to find out after the movie that he was voiced by Ben Schwartz and why am I forgetting the dude from SNL? Fuck. But 2 comedians basically.
Leave it in the comments.
Yep, you'll see it.
Maybe we'll have a correction thing or something.
Maybe. Probably a whole lot of things we gotta correct in this whole thing. People gotta find people that are super into Star Wars and whatever.
But it could open up a level of engagement. People actually listening.
Interested in seeing, like, sound off. Let me know.
Yeah.
Interested in hearing.
But going off of BB-8, how did you like him in the movie? I
thought it was great. I love when he fucking gives the thumbs up.
Oh,
that was fucking
goodness.
cool.
That was so
It
cute.
was hilarious.
I burst out laughing.
That whole the interaction that he had. He's like, "Yo, shut up." He's like, "I'm not actually in the rebellion. Yeah. Don't tell him." He's like, "Lie to me, lie for me." It's like, you can talk to him. And he's like, "I got you." It's like the robot wing. It's great.
And it's Finn. Going back to Finn's character, he just fit that role so damn well.
Yeah.
You can just see it in his face. You look at a guy like Finn, you don't expect him to be a bad guy. He just has like a good guy face.
Yeah.
Where imagine he turns out to be a freaking murderer in real life, then that would be a shock,
Uh-huh.
And that's those are the crazy ones. The ones
you'll see in 8 they decide to be like, "Oh, everyone fucking knew what we're gonna do.
Watch, Finn is gonna be the. That would be nuts. Imagine he was like something with Flynn. I keep saying Flynn because
in like Flynn.
I listening to Tron earlier.
Of course.
But God, going to Tron. I'm sorry, tangent again. Tron 3 being canceled. Damn it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Finn, loved him. BB-8 loved him. What other characters did we talk about? Phasma. Everything we had to say though. I'm saying.
I think I didn't really have anything else to
Would you want to see more of her though in the future?
I mean, yeah, definitely. But like, I just think like the point that I wanted to get across is more like I'm not disappointed in her, but I also didn't really particularly expect anything from her. And I think that to say I'd be disappointed in her would be also like saying I'm disappointed in Parkman and Ken Young for not being like, for not doing enough.
That's where it goes into expectations and understanding what the director was intending for the character,
And like, I think you're putting an expectation because it's like, oh, this is an actress or an actor that I know, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's supposed to be important.
Speaking of actors and actresses in Stormtroopers, you heard that there were big names in the Stormtrooper in the scenes?
Yeah.
But there was like Tom Cruise was a Stormtrooper or something?
The one that Ray like first mind controls, whatever, was David, why am I forgetting Bond's name? David,
Daniel Craig?
Daniel Craig, not David. I was thinking David fucking Hater, I think.
I was
talking
about
Metal Gear
Hasselhoff.
before.
Imagine that.
Right? That'd be crazy.
Comes back with a new
and he
Knight
was
Rider.
Bond? Shit.
What?
He's sitting there, he's got his pop CD, and he's big in Germany, and
Oh,
he's
they
trying
should bring
to
back Knight Rider.
Oh, yeah.
Knight Rider was dope.
I'd be down. Knight Rider BB-8. Sitting in the back.
Oh, man. BB-8, though, seeing R2-D2 and C-3PO, that was so freaking cute. I see R2-D2 waking up.
Yeah.
I love those little droids.
Mhm.
Those little,
R2-D2
little
waking
bastards.
up as soon as Rey comes in the room gives more credence into her being a Skywalker.
Right.
Also,
you think Skywalker, or you think?
I think it'd be very surprising if it's not Luke's son or daughter, rather.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if it isn't Luke's daughter. I feel like it has to be with all the flashbacks and R2-D2 thing. I think it really needs to be. They set it up. They telegraphed it too much. I expect they'll try to subvert expectations in 8, but I think that's kind of like what that has to be. But then again, they set up some things in these movies sometimes that never comes into fruition, like in 4 when fucking Luke and Leia kissed, and it turns out that they're fucking brother and sister in the 5th and 6th one. So, anything can happen with that.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan.
Definitely. And you got all these toys now to buy. You can buy the new C-3PO toy with a red hand. Why does he have a red hand? So that you can buy a new toy. It's the only reason is he has a red hand.
Yeah, where did he lose that hand?
Who knows? It doesn't matter. He lost it on the way to the toy factory. Somewhere between then, they were like, but why would you buy a new C-3PO if you have one that from the old generation is the same exact color scheme? You know, we need to do something. Now he's got a red hand. Oh shit! Now I gotta get the new toy.
They didn't change R2.
That's what we know. They're gonna do the sleeping R2 toy. You know, they're gonna do the one where he's knocked out, or like he has the map inside his.
R2
comes with the map.
Turn into the new General Grievous. He's gonna grow arms. R2 Grievous.
Here's how they're gonna subvert all expectations. Kylo's gonna be a good guy, right? You know, all the bad guys. Snopes is actually gonna end up being like Snopes is going to come through, and he's going to say that this is not true, it's an urban legend.
I thought it was Smoke at first, and then I started, my crazy brain started thinking of Mortal Kombat. And I started
it's bicycle spokes, actually, is what he is. He's General
Stokes.
He's all Stokes. He's stoked.
That's right, motherfucker.
It's the Force, motherfucker. Use the Force, motherfucker. But I feel like it'll end up being like I was talking a little bit about him being a hologram projection. They're gonna roll it back and they're gonna see R2D2 there, and it was R2D2 doing projection, and he was really gonna be him. There was never any Snoke, and he's gonna be like, Snoke was a dumb name. How did you think it was Snoke? And he's gonna be like, it was me, R2D2, bitches. Bah!
I could totally see something like that where. It was R2D2 behind everything, and he was the one controlling.
That's why he was quote unquote sleeping. He was just projecting Snoke the entire time. He had to concentrate to do this long distance.
That's crazy.
It was the real evil was inside this little robot all along. BB-8's the new.
He's not just a trash can.
BB-8 has the good side from R2D2.
He's clearly replacing R2.
Oh, definitely. You know, he's the good R2D2. He's the light.
Right.
And you have R2D2 now is only dark.
I mean, look, it's clear in the color representation.
Definitely.
The orange is a little brighter with the white,
true.
And R2's blue.
But
blue is seen as a good color, trustworthy color, but not anymore.
But what's important is that he's covered in dirt. He's caked in this dirt. He's marred. He's
dirty.
He's not clean anymore. Whereas BB-8 is clean, even though he's in all that sand. He's very clean and he's just very pure. Whereas R2D2 is dirty and marred by the experience.
He's rugged, man. He's seen shit.
He's seen things. He saw Kylo kill all those fucking Jedi. He's like, yo, this is terrible. I gotta come up with something. Snokes. That's what I gotta do.
I hope we see that.
They might. Maybe they'll start off 8. Like we said before, it'd be a little strange to start putting in flashbacks. But also, they also now had lightsabers calling out to people, which is a totally new thing. So maybe they will have flashbacks in these movies. It's hard to say.
I like that scene though where Rey grabbed the lightsaber and it passed Kylo at that time.
Yeah,
that was cool.
A cool thing that I heard afterwards was how when they have that flashback or when she has those visions or whatever from the lightsaber, they got they record there's a whole bunch of old footage and stuff they show you and old sounds and stuff and audio clips, and you hear Obi-Wan say Rey, and they got Ewan McGregor to say it, and they took the original Obi-Wan's voice where he was saying something in the original trailer, or the original series or whatever, and they took out just the inflection he had where they took a syllable out where he was saying Rey, and they basically superimposed both of those audio files over it. Yeah,
that's cool.
And so you get both of the Obi-Wan saying her name when she has those visions. I'm like, that's really cool.
That is pretty cool.
They're like, it just worked out when we went in there and we just had that old Obi-Wan and it was perfect. It was exactly as if this voice actor was here and still alive. We would have gotten him to do it. It's as soon as we would have gotten him to say it, it's exactly what we would say it. So we called in Ewan McGregor, and we mashed them, and we fucking just put it in there, and it's both. So you're really hearing both Obi-Wans. I'm like, that's cool. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah. Nice little fine touch like that.
Yeah, it's something you just they really didn't need to. They totally could have just had one or the other or something, but it's it's a nice detail to have, Yeah.
So overall, you gonna?
No, I think I was about to bring up, I think final thoughts. What do you think?
I loved it. It was, as we said in the beginning and multiple times throughout this discussion. It's what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And overall, I think it was a fun flick. And it sets it up where I'm excited for the future, and I'm anticipating, where it goes. I'm not really expecting too much, given what we got from this movie and just how history goes with movies in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not wise to go in with too many high expectations or just whatever.
I think a question I want to ask actually is, or as part of it, is would you see it again in theaters, or would you wait till home release to see it again?
I think I would see it again in theaters,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't. It's not a movie I would rush to see it because I feel like it had a lot of those callbacks, and there's nothing really that I feel right now. My memory is still very fresh with it.
Mm-hmm.
I can, right? You're probably the same way. You can just pick apart a moment. We start talking about something, and we'll just remember generally the different scenes. Maybe not exactly the timelines of which things happened specifically, but it's very, very fresh.
Well, definitely. I think, and one of the reasons that I bring it up is,
but it's good though, just in case you miss things. But
definitely, and I bring it up because on this day which we were recording, I had the opportunity to see it again. Actually, someone offered me because they hadn't seen it. And
did you see it again the second time?
I said no. I was like, I really don't. I like, you want to come out with us and see this movie? And I was like, nah, I've seen it already, and I really didn't have any desire to see it. It wasn't.
I'm the same. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't. It was a situation too where I don't think I would have had to have paid or anything. Like it wouldn't have been anything. It would have just been my devotion for time.
Yeah.
And like I was like, I kind of like I just didn't have a strong enough desire to see it again right away. And especially in comparison to other things I had to do.
Terrible friend.
Maybe
because they wanted to spend time with you.
I'm not a terrible friend. I'm a terrible brother.
That's even worse.
It was like, it was like they were like, he comes up to me. He's like, want to see Star Wars? And I was like, nah, not really.
Nah, I hear you. Really. It's not a movie. Well, at least right now, I'm not feeling the urge right now to see it again.
Yeah.
I feel that way with a lot of movies these days.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I feel like there's very specific things where it's like it takes us. I feel like a movie is really great when I do want to see it again, and I feel like a lot of times it's like I see it once and that's kind of enough. And I feel like that happens a lot with video games too. Is like I'll play it and I'll beat it once, and then a lot of times it's enough. I don't really ever need to come back to them. And I think it's like a mark of a good game. It's like if I do want to
when you feel
continue playing it,
that urge rather, that itch,
or even to restart it or whatever it is, depending on the game. It's like if I feel like it's like I really want to experience that again. Right. A lot of things. It just a certain amount of time needs to pass. It's because memory remains fresh for a long period of time. Like certain things where it's like I don't need to devote 2 hours to it because in my head I can remember everything that happens, so I don't really need to go and devote 2 hours to a movie or 60 or 20 hours or whatever.
Realistically, it'd probably be like close to 4 hours you're gonna be spending.
Yeah.
Because the movie is 2.5 hours, and then the drive there.
Oh yeah, in this specific case, because it's that you have to deal with trailers and all that stuff.
Where are you gonna go to see it?
Where?
Yeah, where?
I don't know. I didn't find out.
You didn't make it that far.
Nah. I came home from doing something else, working with one of the clients I have, and then it was basically like, and that was also one of the things that kind of drove me into it too. It was kind of like at that point I just really wanted to be home, so it was like, did you see Star Wars yet? And I was like, yeah. It's like, oh, you want to come see it with us? And I was like, nah. So it was like, there was definitely a lot of other factors into it. It wasn't solely just like I don't really feel like seeing this movie again, but I also feel like if I had a strong enough desire to, I would have probably fought those other urges, and I think that would have compelled me to be like, yeah, let me go see it again. I feel like I would have wanted to have seen it again. Like that would have been a stronger motivator. Whereas in terms of this, I like sitting and laying down and resting or watching or completing something I hadn't completed in a while.
So that it's safe to say that would have forced you to watch it again.
It's true. Stay woke. The Force advice.
Stay safe, Yoda.
That's it.
I want to see Yoda again.
Well,
that's my final thought.
That's what you want to have?
That's what I want to end on.
They're going to start 8 with, they're going to be like...
No, seriously, I want to see Yoda again.
What happened with Yoda? Is he dead?
He's dead. Yeah, he's gone, but he's still with the Force,
Oh, yeah, they're going to have him show up blue and stuff, like in the end of 6. Ghost Yoda?
Some form. I would like it. Even if it's like Luke, involving Luke somehow,
It could be.
Maybe a flashback, when he was training with him.
I think it'd be really cool to see, instead of it just being a flashback to, whatever happened in the old stuff, maybe they'll have, kind of like ghosts recreating the battle, or like they continue the battle or something. So like they'll go onto like whatever the planet or wherever it was that they had that old Jedi temple training ground that he had, or whatever. Yeah, and then like as he explains the story to Rey, like you'll see like holograms or whatever, kind of like fighting in the background or explaining it, and there'll be like a war happening around them as they speak or something. I think that would be kind of like a cool way to handle that.
That would be cool.
It'd be an interesting thing to do.
Cool scenery too.
Yeah, you know.
But
and I want to see Jar Jar again. Jar Jar and Yoda just palling out. That's what I need to see.
I thought I was gonna be spoiled with I saw Darth Maul, his name mentioned somewhere.
Oh shit.
So I thought maybe Darth Maul might have been back as Kylo.
Well, the bad guys don't actually have any Darth like affiliation. Kylo Ren, he's the Order of Ren, so like it's a whole new thing because his name's really Ben. It's Ben Solo,
Ben.
so
Right,
it's like
yeah,
Kylo Ren, and it's like like what exactly is the relation to
All those
Darths?
things.
Are they Siths?
There's something about yeah, no, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say Snoke with
Well, Snoke is what's that
Palladius or
character?
whatever,
Yeah.
Darth Palladius.
Yeah, that
That's
they
his
mentioned in the
name?
prequel, yeah. Like, I know a lot of people kind of see it, and, like, it makes
I've read
sense for that to be
something
the
on that.
case. But I don't know if they'll go that route or if that's what it'll be.
Yeah.
I think it would be funny if he was just a Yoda. He was actually the size of Yoda.
It's Yoda all along.
That's it. Yoda was inside R2-D2, and he was evil Yoda.
That's where he is.
Bad Yodel.
So, how do we end a discussion?
I mean,
I guess you just kind of do it. Right?
That's it. That's the end of the spoiler cast. We talked about
you know,
Star Wars.
realistically, going forward,
Mhm.
I'm never gonna know how to end.
Oh, definitely.
I guess it was just best to just leave
I'll
it.
be leave ending shit to me. I'll just be like, yo, cut it, we're done. But like I think like
pig.
it's like done. Hard end, hard exit. We gotta go. Hard cut, hard out. But like I think that we talked enough about it. I think we got our points across. Star Wars. We talked about Star Wars. We spoiled it. We spoiled Marvel. We spoiled Batman. We spoiled what else? Did we spoil.
We can have so many discussions on all this stuff.
Oh, definitely, and I think we will.
Right.
But as it stands, I think we talked enough about Star Wars. If you have any other comments or you want to just get involved in discussion, engage with us, you can do that. Leave it in the comments. There's some section below. You can hit me up. I'm Asadasa on Twitter at ASADASA. You can also see me on the IXI Twitch channel and the IXI Club.
You can see, and the channels are twitch.tv/IXI Club and youtube.com/IXI Club.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, I'm unknown, or more known nowadays as Fun Known. You can find me on Twitter at unknown IXI. So that's twitter.com/unknown IXI. And if you want to reach us, you can comment on this podcast right below, or you can send a message on Twitter or whatever you want, and we'll try to reach out to you.
That's it.
And until next time,
Thanks for
see you
listening.
later.
Until next time, stay woke.
May the force be with you.